December 2nd, a nation's populace uprising to regain the kidnapped republic from Houthi rebels. Martin Griffith calls on the international community to increase aid fund for Yemen. The number of internally displaced people rises in Ma'rib as fighting escalates in the city. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rana Swayla. The call given by the former president Ali Abdullah Saleh on the 2nd of December 2017 was meant to urge all Yemenis to unite and regain their republic, which has been kidnapped by Houthi rebels in 2014. The following report looks at the significance of that moment in modern Yemen history, with special emphasis on political career of a great leader who initiated it.
Ali Abdullah Saleh will be remembered as the man who shaped modern Yemen in his own image. Without his deal-making skills, the civil war that sparked and the devastating humanitarian crises caused are only likely to get worse. Shortly after Saleh was named president of North Yemen in July 1978, the local CIA station chief predicted that he would be dead within 6 months, the latest in a series of Yemeni leaders to fall victim to infighting. Contrary to the prestigious CIA institution predictions, Saleh went on to rule for 33 years, surviving any number of assassination attempts, and he was the first leader of a unified Yemen in 1990. He loomed large over the country, living on his own wits. He likened ruling Yemen to dancing on the head of snakes and was a deal-maker who exceeded and outlived all expectations. Saleh announced a split from Houthis and called for the entire nation to start a populist uprising against Houthi rebels. This is known by December uprising. In that call, Ali Abdullah Saleh urged all Yemenis, north and south, to unite and regain the kidnapped republic from the hands of the new imamates. In response of Saleh's call, fierce fighting took place in Sana'a, in which Houthi rebels inflicted with great losses. By Sunday, Houthi militias were in control of much of Sana'a, and fierce battles were taking place around the homes of key Saleh family members. He was killed in the ensuing gun battle while defending himself with his close friend Arif al-Zuka. Saleh's death came as a shock to most Yemenis. Saleh's death caps a 40-year political career that charts Yemen's tragic modern history. A country with few natural resources, awash in weapons, and fractured along tribal and religious line. Yet, he managed to dig a weighty place for Yemen regionally and globally. Eventually, his death led to a deeper polarization in the conflict, and the future of Yemen without him looks really grim.
Houthi militia appointed former leader of Al-Qaeda as deputy governor of Sana'a. Houthis honored the former leader of Al-Qaeda, Arif Majalli, who was convicted of several terrorist attacks, including planning to target a civilian plane with a thermal missile during its takeoff from Sana'a airport. Arif Saleh Majalli, nicknamed Abu Layth al-Sana'ani, and his two older brothers, Hizam and Yahya, were activists in Al-Qaeda. He was arrested in 2003 on charges of plotting to attack a plane belonging to the Hunt Oil Company during its takeoff from Sana'a airport, and was sentenced in 2004 to 5 years in prison, along with Al-Qaeda leader Qasim al-Rimi and other activists. Houthi militia mobilized human reinforcements and military equipment to Al-Jarrah district south of Hodeidah. Sources said that over the past 2 weeks, Houthi militia has sent dozens of crews, armored vehicles, and tanks to Al-Jarrah in conjunction with the progress made by the joint forces in the neighboring Hais. The sources indicated that the militia turned many villages and general lines into military areas and built barricades and digging trenches in full view of the coalition fighters. The barbaric acts of Houthi rebels have crossed all limits and norms. Away from being the cause of starting this 7-year war, in which thousands have been killed, now they are using humanitarian aids as means to blackmail civilians in order to recruit their sons and send them to war fronts. More on this story is within the following report.
Houthi militia continue taking advantage of Yemenis in need. They are widening circle of poverty in areas under their control, the last of which is in Al Jarrah and Jabal Ras districts of Hodeidah, as they blackmail citizens with food and aid in exchange for fighting with them in battlefronts. Iran proxies through their Supreme Council for the Management and Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs pushed Jil al-Bina Association to distribute 400 emergency bags and shelter aid to families in Jabal Ras district, while the Danish consul paid 350 emergency bags and shelter aids for families in Al-Jarrahi. Houthi leaders Hamid al-Rafiq and Mutahhar al-Hadi oversaw the aid distribution process as an opportunity to exploit people's need. They provided these families with food baskets they cannot afford in exchange for joining their ranks in the raging battlefronts to confront the joint forces. This coincided with joint forces' progress during the past 2 weeks, where Houthi rebels incurred heavy losses. The militia's Supreme Council for the Management and Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, including Houthi leaders, distributed some 10,000 food baskets to the people in various areas under their control, to mobilize and recruit many, most of whom are children, and move them into battlefronts. Houthi militia makes use of the crumbling economic situation and Yemen's grinding crisis to further abuse Yemenis whose lives are already devastated by the ugly war.
More than 60 organizations urged the UN General Assembly to establish an investigative body to gather and preserve evidence of serious human rights violations, including possible war crimes and crimes against humanity. The organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, said that the matter is urgent, particularly after the UN Human Rights Council voted in October to shut down its investigation into atrocities in Yemen. The 60 organizations said suffering inflicted on Yemenis needs an investigative body to address impunity in the ongoing conflict. The Yemeni government called on the United Nations to link its humanitarian response to development projects related to the desired peace goals in the country. This came during a meeting between Foreign Minister Ahmed bin Mubarak with Deputy Executive Director of the World Food Programme Amir Abdullah. Bin Mubarak warned from threats on environmental and food security posed by safer tanker if Houthis' irresponsible dealings with the issue continued without strong pressure from the international community. For his part, the Deputy Executive Director of the program expressed his concern about deterioration of humanitarian situation in Yemen due to the Riyal collapse and its impact on the food security situation in Yemen. Permanent representative of Yemen to the United Nations, Ambassador Abdullah Al-Saadi, discussed with the Norway ambassador to the UN, Mona Gull, recent political developments and economic and humanitarian situation in Yemen. This comes when Norway is to preside the Security Council next January 2022. During the meeting, Al-Saadi stressed that ceasefire has become an absolute necessity to stop the deterioration of humanitarian and economic situation. For her part, Norwegian diplomat affirmed her country's full support for the UN Special Envoy to Yemen and all efforts aimed at alleviating the humanitarian and economic suffering in Yemen, noting that Norway will spare no effort to advance towards a solution that ends the conflict and stops the war. The United Nations appealed a record of $41 billion to provide life-saving assistance next year to 183 million people worldwide caught up in conflict and poverty. UNAID Chief Martin Griffiths said that drivers of needs are those who are familiar to all, including protracted conflicts, political instability and falling economies. The UN said without sustained and immediate action, the year 2022 could be catastrophic, noting that Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Ethiopia and Sudan are the 5 major crises requiring the most funding. Turning to Marib, more than 64,450 people have been displaced in or to the governorate between January and November this year due to fighting. According to a recent UN report, renewed hostilities since early September have significantly impacted civilians, causing massive displacement of 64,000, more than two-thirds. Around 45,450 people were displaced since September. To Hodeidah, the International Committee of the Red Cross announced the displacement of more than 10,000 citizens due to the ongoing conflict in Hodeidah since last September. Katrina Ritz said that 10,000 others from Hodeidah Governorate have left their homes since September in search of safety, while the ongoing armed conflict continues to claim more lives. She called on the warring parties to protect the lives and safety of civilians who have stopped participating in the fighting. Houthi crimes against civilians south of Hodeidah are increasing on a daily basis. A recent one happened when a Houthi mine exploded in a whole family while they were in their car. More details are in the following report.
Countless Houthi crimes committed by the Houthi militia, the Iranian army in Yemen, against innocent civilians south of Hodeidah. The family of the citizen Abdul Saeed Hashish and his young grandchildren were scattered on their bodies by a Houthi mine that exploded in their car on one of the roads of the village of Al-Fawaha, while they were leaving their village towards the city of Hais.
There were 8 people in the car and the car was completely destroyed. The mine exploded while they were at the beginning of the valley. The rescue teams came to rescue them. My car is now in the valley there. One of the wounded had shrapnel removed from his body, while the remaining has mine fragments in their hands.
Al-Hashish family, which consisted of 8 women and children, were all seriously wounded, 2 girls and an elderly woman, in addition to a young man and 4 children wounded by scattered shrapnel. Most of them were described as critical as the Houthi death machine almost snatched their lives.
During their displacement, they loaded all their tools on a truck. They left the place. They left their home and passed by the valley. Once they entered the valley, the mine exploded. When citizens came to rescue them, Houthis rained them with fire to prevent citizens from helping the wounded victims. However, citizens rescued the victims. They took them with a motorbike to the nearest point of resistance. The victims were taken to Hais district and then to Al-Makha. Now, most of them are in a very critical condition. At the end, we thank God for everything.
Thousands of innocent people were among the dead and wounded. They were victims in the Houthi fields and mines that the militia planted on the side of the roads and inside the farms and homes of citizens, in order to catch innocent prey in their trap nets to claim more lives. The crime of Al-Hashish family was not the last to be recorded in the list of Houthi crimes. Rather, it is a crime followed by thousands of crimes committed by this terrorist group. These Houthi violations hardly stop against civilians from the sons of Al-Sahel al-Tuhami, as long as the international community turns a blind eye to them.
Still in Hodeidah, the joint forces advanced in Al-Jarrahi and captured Houthi militia sites in Al-Danin area. According to military sources, joint forces launched an attack on the militia sites, making progress with a distance of more than 5 kilometers, causing heavy losses among the rebels. To Saada, government forces thwarted Houthi infiltration attempt in Al-Thabit front. According to military sources, the government forces repelled a Houthi infiltration and detour operation adjacent to Al-Thabit central market, causing severe losses among the rebels. In Taiz, Colonel Abdel Basit Al-Qadi, a leader in the 35th Armored Brigade, was injured after being subjected to an assassination attempt with an explosive device in Souq al-Ahad in Al-Ma'afir district. Sources said that the explosion was a result of a planted explosive device by anonymous personnel in his car, leading to the amputation of his foot in addition to the injury of soldiers and civilians. Coming next. The 7-year war has affected hugely agriculture sector in Yemen.
اضطرينا ان احنا نغادر من ذي ونزحنا.
الله يستنقذكم يا محويتني، الله يستنقذ.
Welcome back. Yemen enjoys a very rich agricultural sector. Yet, like anything now, this sector has been weakened by the bad war. Farmers find it hard to get the required logistical support to grow more crops. The following report has more on this story.
Over the past 7 years, citizens' ability to maintain their livelihood and put food on the table has been threatened by a combination of factors, aggravated by the ongoing conflict. The war has hit Yemen and its citizens from many different aspects. Farmers were found to be suffering the most during this time of war. Economic deterioration, damages to vital irrigation infrastructure, dependency on inefficient irrigation methods, and the vulnerability of the land to the impact of flooding left farmers in constant fear of the future. As a coping strategy, farmers built rudimentary and relatively costly dams to protect their lands and crops from floods. Yet, seasonal flooding continued to flush away lands, crops, and farmers' hopes in a blink of an eye. With support from the Global Agriculture and Food Security Programme and the World Bank, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in Yemen implemented the Smallholder Agriculture Production, Restoration and Enhancement Project. The project supported vulnerable small-scale farming households across Yemen through financing community initiatives to increase smallholders' production, income, and food security. The project constructed and rehabilitated flood walls and irrigation canals, enabling farmers to sustainably irrigate and protect their flood-prone land from erosion. The project supported 157,000 households. Out of these, 22,660 families were benefited from strengthened land and water management to address water scarcity and mitigate the impact of flooding. The project has given a new lease of life to farmers in many districts in Yemen and renewed their hopes. They can now confidently invest in their lands and help their communities persevere during the crisis.
Preparations to announce the Coordinating Council for Religious and Ethnic Minorities, which includes representatives of Christians, Jews, and Baha'i faith, as well as the black minority, have been set out. This council is made to confront the eradication approach of the Houthi militia and to preserve the religious and ethnic pluralism in Yemen. According to sources, the council's announcement ended with the selection of 8 personalities, half of whom are females, representing 3 main religious minorities in the country, namely Christianity, Judaism, and Baha'ism, as well as the black ethnic and linguistic minority that speaks an ancient Yemeni language other than Arabic. The Yemeni rial recorded a new record collapse against foreign currencies after the US dollar crossed the barrier of 1,700 rials for the first time in its history, while the Chamber of Commerce and Industry appealed to the president and the government to intervene to stop the collapse of the national currency. Abu Bakr Bouabaid, head of the Chamber of Commerce, reiterated the merchants' complaint about the accelerating rise in the exchange rates of the hard currency needed to import various commodities, including basic food supplies, and the associated significant collapse of the national currency, a matter that threatens the living stability of the majority of people. The World Health Organization urged all Yemenis to take COVID-19 vaccines and to continue following preventive measures of the virus. This came in a statement where the organization stressed that vaccines are safe and effective in preventing severe COVID-19 infection or infection-related death. The organization confirmed that the vaccination centers are continuing their free work with the support of the World Bank. The National Committee of Coronavirus announced 5 new cases of the COVID-19 in 3 governorates. According to committee officials, 2 cases were recorded in Ma'rib, 2 in Hadramaut, while 1 case was recorded in Al-Bayda. Also, 1 death was recorded and 19 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 10,011, including 1,951 deaths and 6,911 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. December 2nd, a nation's populist uprising to regain the kidnapped republic from Houthi rebels. Martin Griffiths calls on the international community to increase aid fund for Yemen. The number of internally displaced people rises in Ma'rib as fighting escalates in the city. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.